I really view males the same way they view women, because why am I stepping outside of my house and seeing a man with a beer belly? You're 5'7" balding with a beer belly, bro. You want Livy Dunn? You want Lori Harvey? Be LeBron James. It's not difficult. Can't be that hard. Oh, you want Livy Dunn? Be Cooper Flagg. You think because Jalen Suggs pulled Haley Van Lith whilst balding that you can too? You're 5'7" pudgy and balding. And you're broke and unemployed. Oh, our birth rates are down.
Have you noticed that more and more men are choosing to stay single, and some women have simply decided the problem is entirely their fault? In this video, you're going to hear women explaining with no filter why they think male loneliness exists, and some of these explanations are so absurd, they almost sound like a joke.
Only men could rebrand Darwinism as a male loneliness epidemic. And if you don't believe me, in every other species out there, the male has to try and win the female over. And if she chooses him, then he's chosen. And if he doesn't, you don't see a lion walking around being like, oh, I'm a lonely lion, the male lion loneliness epidemic. Nope. He is just a product of Darwinism and was not chosen because he's not the best fit. And considering what women have now, if we're not picking you, you're not the right fit. So if you're really, really mad about it, just remember this is Darwinism at its finest. This is us picking the best men. And if you weren't picked, it's not because there's a loneliness epidemic. It's because you don't fit the requirements for you to be chosen in the animal kingdom. So do better, or your genes won't get passed on. That's just how this is going to be from now on. So again, it's just nature. It's just the natural order that the females look at the best male out of all of the ones approaching her, and she picks the one that is the most fitting. Not a male loneliness epidemic, Darwinism. And it's working really well right now.
She tries to compare men to animals to justify the idea that if a man isn't chosen, it's simply because he's not good enough. But what she ignores is that human beings are not lions living in the savannah. Human relationships involve respect, partnership, and shared values, not just biological selection. What many men are noticing today is that some women treat relationships like a status competition. So a lot of men have simply decided not to participate in that game. It's not inability, it's a choice.
If men pursued friendships with the same tenacity and energy in which they pursue pussy, the male loneliness epidemic among straight men would not be what it is. And if a lot of straight men tried to emulate the way women have friendships, they would not have this problem that they have. And the first thing that a man is going to say to this is, oh my God, women are falling out all the time. Women fall out all the time because they actually talk about things and they try to maintain standards within their friendships. Your boyfriend's friend and their girlfriend broke up. You ask, why did they break up? What happened? Oh, I don't know. I forgot to ask. Could you imagine that happening among two women? Two women would talk about it. Men have no curiosity about what's going on in their friends' lives and wonder why they're lonely. Moreover, how often do you see a straight man, reaching out to a guy that he thinks they could be good friends and like shooting him a DM and saying, hey, like we should hang out? Almost never. How often are they in someone's DMs looking for pussy? Precisely. If men pursued quality friendships with the same tenacity that they pursue pussy, they would not be as lonely. Thank you.
Why is the male loneliness epidemic my issue? Why are men in comments going, oh, men's mental health is suffering because we're alone? Why is that my issue that you're lonely? That you're so insufferable to be around and your political views are so damaging to those around you that you have a loneliness epidemic? Why is that my issue? What does that have to do with women? Feminism and women's call to action is about what men and patriarchy do to us. Your loneliness epidemic is a result of individual choices and, you guessed it, patriarchy. So what does that have to do with me? Talk to your bros. Tell them you love them. Or is that too femme for you? Is that too girly for you? Go and do a hobby that doesn't involve pummeling each other. Or is that too feminine for you? Write your friends letters telling them how much you love them. Or is that too feminine for you? What does it have to do with me? Sort it out. Ugh.
This woman basically says male loneliness isn't her problem. And in one sense, she's right. It's not women's responsibility to fix men's emotional lives. But what's interesting is that the same feminist narrative constantly says women's problems are society's responsibility, especially men's. So when it's a women's issue, it becomes a collective responsibility. When it's a men's issue, suddenly it's figure it out yourself. That says more about the current mindset than it does about men.
I laugh every single time I see anything about like the male loneliness epidemic, because every woman I know is like the most beautiful, considerate, thoughtful, lovely person and is trying to find love. And then every man I encounter is fumbling the baddest bitch on the planet because of their own ego or own self issues. I was supposed to go on a first date a week ago. This was with somebody that I had met in real life through a friend. We got along super well. Honestly, he was doing everything right leading up to the date. He was like calling me and texting me and being really sweet, and even like texting our mutual friend and being like, oh, like, what does Tanya like? And he was doing great. However, we were supposed to go out Saturday during the day. On Friday night, we were on the phone just chatting, and he asked me to send him my location, and I said no. I was like, you don't need to know my address. We've only met once. Like, I don't know you like that. I told you my neighborhood if you're trying to figure out how far you are from me. That's all you really need to know. And when I said that, he was like, oh, why? Do you think I'm going to abduct and kidnap you? And I was like, no, but I don't know you. I'm not sending you my address. And then I decided to let it slide, because sometimes people just say dumb things and they don't think about it. I didn't genuinely get a feeling of unsafety or danger. But then the next day, like 30 minutes before we're supposed to meet, we were supposed to go to this market thing together and then maybe like go to a park to play chess. And he was like, hey, like, let's skip the market. And then he had planned out like this whole day. And I was like, yeah, that sounds great, but I do really want to go to the market as well. So like maybe we can do both. To which his response was, Tanya, you're making it really hard to abduct and kidnap you. How are you making this statement twice? It wasn't funny the first time you did it. It's still not funny the second time you did it. So when he said that to me, I was like, hey, you might not want to make comments like that to a woman that you barely know. And he was like, oh, my sense of humor is just like dark and offensive. If that's a deal breaker for you, let me know. And I was like, no, dark and offensive humor I'm fine with. My therapist literally told me that I have the darkest sense of humor of anyone she's ever met. But I was like, jokes are generally funny. And then instead of apologizing at this point, he just doubled down and he said, TBH, I don't really appreciate being told how to socialize. Motherfucker, what? First of all, I didn't tell you how to socialize. All I said was, jokes are generally funny. Second of all, it sounds like you do need someone to tell you how to socialize, because, oh my God, what is wrong with you? And then I was like, hey, I don't really appreciate being told that I'm going to get abducted and kidnapped by someone I'm about to go on a date with, so I'm just going to go ahead and cancel this. And I did. And all of this is to say, if you see anything about the male loneliness epidemic and you're a male and you're wondering why, just know it is of your own doing. We are trying, but good fucking God, get your shit together.
Her story actually starts with a specific example of a guy making a dumb joke, and she was right to cancel the date over that. But the logical leap she makes afterward is ridiculous, turning one awkward guy into proof that all men are the problem. That's pure generalization. Everyone has had bad dates. The difference is that many men have had dozens of these experiences where they notice unrealistic expectations, constant tests, and very little reciprocity. Yet somehow, the conclusion is always that the man is the problem.
The crazy thing about the whole male loneliness epidemic is that men know what they need to do to get women. It's not that hard to figure out. They just hate that it would mean conceding to a matriarchy. They want women, but they also want women in a dynamic where they have the power. It's not just about wanting women. Like, they want to have women, but they want to also be in control of that woman. So it's less about them being lonely. It's more about them feeling like they're needing to concede the power that they felt like they were promised their entire lives. We're telling them to put in effort, whether that's effort in like their emotional maturity or the way they look, the way they present themselves, whatever. And they don't like that because they feel entitled to women. They feel like they shouldn't have to put in effort, at least, especially not as much effort as women have to put into themselves. into themselves in order to get women. If you look at the women, or if you look at the men that women like lust after, it's usually men, like in terms of public figures. I just saw a video of Pedro Pascal. It's men that stick up for things that are right. Pedro Pascal is obviously a beautiful man, but it's men that are comfortable with their masculinity. It's men that don't feel threatened by femininity. It's men that stand up for what's right and stands up for people who are marginalized or people who don't have as loud of a voice. But these men insist on clinging on to these patriarchal structures, and it's because they want women in the context of having power over a woman. They don't want a woman just in general. They don't want a woman as an equal partner. They want a woman that they can control and feel better and stronger than. Because in their mind, that's what it means to be masculine. That's what being a man means. And that's what we've all been indoctrinated into and what we've all been taught. But as much as we're trying to teach them that we need to break down this conditioning, they do not want to break it down because it's not convenient for them to do so. Because it sacrifices a lot of their identity. It's not that they don't understand, it's just the truth is very inconvenient for them. Okay, the truth would be like conceding to what women want out of men would be conceding to accepting us as equals. And that's not something that they're willing to do.
Here, we see a very common idea today, that men know exactly what they need to do to get women, but refuse because they don't want to give up power. But most men aren't fighting for power over women. They're looking for respect, stability, and reciprocity. What many men see today is a culture that demands endless effort from them while constantly devaluing traditional masculinity. So some men have simply decided to stop competing for female attention in that environment.
I remember growing up and marriage was framed as like the end of male freedom, right? Like wives were the ball and chain. That was the joke, right? Like pictures like this one dominated Pinterest. The joke was always that once a man got married, his life was over. And when you were dating as a woman, you did not bring up marriage and kids too soon, right? Like that's how you scared him off. Women were told to play it cool. Let him decide when he's ready. But now I feel like every other man online is urgently searching for a woman who wants to be a wife and wants to be a mom, like immediately, right? Like they're saying, where are the traditional women? Why don't women want families anymore? Like there's this very loud panic. And so I'm going to say it, like, I think that this switch is interesting, first of all, because historically, like women had to get married to survive, right? Like you needed a husband for financial security. You needed children to secure that position. That system, it allowed men to be nonchalant, right? Like they could play hard to get because society guaranteed them that they were going to win regardless. But now women can earn, right? Like, they can buy property, they can leave relationships that they're not happy in. Fun little fact, single women actually buy more homes than single men in the United States. About 19 to 20% of all home buyers are single women compared to about 10 to 11% for single men. Women are literally opting into just living their lives alone, moving on with their lives by themselves. And meanwhile, like incomes feel lower than ever and the cost of living is at an all-time high. And there are men saying that they want these traditional dynamics, like as the man who's the head of the household and the provider. But in reality, like most couples are splitting everything 50-50. So women, it seems that have looked at the math and decided if I'm going to pay half anyways, like I might as well just live alone. Because let's be real, the male loneliness epidemic is a direct response to men's treatment of women for generations. Like I said earlier, like women had fewer options. They were expected to stay no matter how they were treated. And women don't have to do that anymore. And instead of asking why more women are opting out, some men react with resentment and like calls to return to like traditional roles. And they support administrations and legislations that are actively trying to restrict women's rights to force them into positions where they have to rely on men again, instead of asking why women don't want to be in traditional relationships. When women stopped needing marriage started needing women, right? I would even go as far as to say, like, men's newfound desire to be married and have a family is a direct result of women not wanting that anymore. They now want it because women do not want it.
She brings up some real social changes, like women gaining financial independence. That part is true. The problem is turning that into a narrative of historical revenge against men. The reality is simpler. When relationships start to feel like a negotiation where the man has to provide, split everything, take on the risks, and still be treated like the historical problem, many men start asking themselves, is this even worth it? And many are starting to conclude that, at least for now, it isn't.